All right, ladies and gentlemen, it seems like we're back in action. Hopefully, things are much smoother this time around. I already feel things being smoother, but knock on wood, we still don't know exactly. Chiskel, are you on the line with me, my friend?
Hey, yes, yes, indeed.
Yeah, sorry about that, folks. It is what it is. Sometimes we have to get a quick restart going. It looks like things are a little bit smoother. Hopefully, this will solve our issue for now. Let's make sure the folks can see the stream and everything is good. I hope we resumed stream rather than started a new one, or else this might be bad. But, chat, are you still with us? Let's take a quick peek. Is the chat still with us? Looks like it is indeed with us. Cool. We're back. We're back in action. Chisco, what did we miss?
Well, there's been a crazy amount of fighting going on around the Ark of Osiris. It is still on the side of Newbie 2. However, Ovie has captured the outpost that it would be used to score points with. So we now have that exact situation that we thought would be hugely problematic for Newbie 2, which is that they've got the Ark, but there seems to be more Ovie in the area, and even though they've got it, it doesn't matter. They can't capture it because Ovie has this outpost.
Uh-oh. Can OV really do them dirty like this and stick that arc in a outpost that's not supposed to be theirs? That would be like the ultimate thing. And it looks like OV are aiming at that. That Richard is holding strong. They are picking up this arc. They're literally making the move to disrespectfully in a very sports matter though. I love it. Put this arc in their favor on an outpost that's supposed to belong to NB2. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I don't think that's disrespectful at all. I think it's just great play. They captured the Newbie 2 outpost, and they've got more
Disrespectful in a
troops in
good
the
term.
area, and they
Disrespectful in a
cap
good
it.
term. A little bit of BM. That's good BM. Something BM is required sometimes. Come on, man. This is awesome.
I,
I
I,
love it.
I mean, yeah, I don't think it's BM. I just think it's great
Great
play.
play. I
The
agree.
closest structure was the one they just took.
Yep.
Um, I, Newbie 2 had to take some risks, by the way, and I don't think it's bad that they did because they needed to play to win. Playing to win, in this case, would have meant that they needed to get a bunch of structures owned by OV and at the same time still capture the Ark. So they had to spread themselves thin to pull that off, and it didn't work out. I think that's a fine choice to have made. It was the only choice, in fact, they probably could have made in order to win, and it didn't pan out for them. OV is going to win this matchup with 10 minutes remaining. There is not a way for newbie back into this matchup unless they took every single structure and got a free carry of the arc, which seems really unlikely. So I think Gecko, that might be the wrap on this particular battle.
Yeah, I unfortunately cannot disagree with you there. With almost a double the points lead, almost 18,000 times too for the folks in OV. It's just not meant to be. NB2 tried their very best to get in the driver's seat at any point. It was quite literally, we will do anything we can to be in that driver's seat, but OV never gave them a spot to breathe. Every time the folks of NB2 acted or reacted to something OV did previously, OV were already setting up their next move and they were already one step ahead of that move. And so it's so hard to be able to play a match where you cannot execute your own strategy and your own tactics because you're consistently reacting to your oppositions. And it's one of those things where I have not seen an alliance be able to break out of that mold yet. It seems that it's very easy to take the driver's seat per se if an enemy makes a mistake and you capitalize on it, which a lot of alliances have done in the past in Osiris League. But I have not seen yet someone who saw the other enemy, the other teams, the opposition's plan and said, we need to counter it, and actually managed to take away that driver's seat by force rather than because the other team slipped for a moment and let it go. So
Well,
I don't think
here's what
anyone's
I'll
read OV yet. I don't think
yeah,
anyone's
here's
been
what I'll
able to
say.
read them.
Here's what I'll say is that a lot of the matchups leading up to this point in the Ark of Osiris League have been really close battles. They've been really, really close battles. But Ovie beat my own alliance by a non-trivial margin. And here it's a non-trivial margin as well. There's something that they are doing that is very different than the way everybody else is playing Ark of Osiris League. And we've got to figure out what that is because it's working.
It is working, and I think that the number one thing to take a look at is discipline, right? When you have a disciplined team that trust each other, you don't necessarily try to overcompensate. One of the things that I'm sure you can attest to, because you guys had the unfortunate situation of having to play a match or two with 6 or even more substitutions, you start wanting to overcompensate for something that wasn't your initial role, right? So when you are on their back foot, it's really hard to say, I'm going to stick to my lane, I'm going to stick to the strategy, and I'm going to stick to doing things. People start wanting to be more effective, to help out, to be the hero, but not to be the hero out of a selfish thing, but out of wanting to help the alliance out. I don't think OV have yet to be tested on their overcompensation. Nobody's yet to really manage to break their discipline, and they are just like you said, they have marches everywhere at any time, at any place. They had 20 marches in the center while beating up the buildings on the sides. They could be caravanning with those 20 marches, or they could be beating up other buildings with those 20 marches right now, and it's just impossible to get them to blink. My real concern will happen when OV blinks. If the enemy that'll fight them, which will potentially be 1NB8 or JWM, will manage to capitalize it, or will OV not blink a single time this Ark of Osiris Season 1, this Osiris League Season 1, and get out as the champions that never blinked?
Yeah, I mean, their structures were attacked over the course of this battle. It's not like their structures weren't ever blinking. I think what's significant here is that they're able to have enough marches to defend those structures when they need to. But what I see is very, very, very intense pressure being applied by Ovie from the second that pressure can be applied. And if I were to point to any one thing working really well, it is high offensive pressure on the enemy's side of the battlefield. That seems to be a pattern. We experienced it in White Tigers. They did it again here, and it seems to be working. The other thing that we need to call attention to is the commander choices, because they are different than what we've seen other places. I have not seen as much Constantine in other Ark of Osiris League battles as I have from OV. They use Constantine to defend structures, and they use them a lot. They also are using Saladin primary for just about every rally. I wonder what you could do to counteract those choices. If you were attacking into a Constantine, you could rally with a Alexander the Great primary in order to be immune to the 20 or 40% attack down that you're going to get from Constantine. You would be immune to that. That would be pretty good. It also could make it so that you could interrupt the healing potentially from a secondary commander, and often they're pairing with Richard. That might be how you go about countering it.
So I think that, just like you mentioned, we're seeing some very unconventional plays, and I'm keeping my eye on this Constantine because it never left this desert altar, and it's a testament to the creativity and to the levels of knowledge of mechanics, to the point where these guys are doing something that is very creative, very innovative, that not necessarily anyone would do. But you mentioned something when we talked about this Constantine previously that I really want to talk about a little bit further, which is making decisions that are quickly reversible. Commanders and the guys who have these commanders are not trying to make reversible decisions. They are the individuals who are the linchpin of their strategy. In every big alliance, you should have individuals whose dedication to the cause is for a specific reason. I believe that the folks who have defensive commanders inside these buildings have a specific dedication in their alliance, which is we are the defensive strength of Ark of Osiris. And so when you take that role on you, making big decisions like maxing Constantine is almost a no-brainer, because that's what you're here to do. Everybody is very focused on being a rally leader or an offensive player or anything there is. But in Ark of Osiris, as well as in Rise of Kingdoms in general, an alliance requires much more than just warriors. It requires defenders, it requires gatherers, it requires all these different things, which we see in Ovie happen very, very clearly. These guys who have Constantine might have skipped on the Alexander, but they knew they were doing it because they are the defensive force of Ovie's Ark of Osiris. That's their role. And I love it. I think that needs to happen more. Alliances need to evolve more into having players whose roles are very, very specific. And so they're tested on those scales and not on this generic scale of kills and deaths.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting idea, that players within an alliance would specialize. We certainly have had roles within White Tigers for, hey, you're a rally leader, hey, you're a structure captain. But those roles did not extend so deep as to really shape the texture of people's collections. It was more a response to what people had already invested in. So I like that idea of saying, hey, what do you want to focus on? Do you want to focus on launching rallies or defending structures? And you only need a small number of rally leaders.
Exactly. You don't need 30 members to be rally leaders. You don't need 30 members to be building holders. But if you know that this certain individual is not showing up on the open field as much on Lost Kingdom, but he is definitely putting his Constantine Richard onto that flag and holding on to it for dear life, well, that's a guy that you can depend on. I can tell you that in all 4 alliances that made it up here, there are individuals whose decisions were shaped based on Osiris League. I can tell you for a fact that some of the folks who have a Wu Zetian showing up on the field, which I'm surprised we haven't seen one today, these guys didn't max there because they want to hold on to their city while they're AFKing for a week. They maxed there because of Osiris League. And so it is a thing where if you really want to step it up and get to a point where you're influential in your alliance, try to find a more creative role. There are plenty of them in Osiris League, in Ark of Osiris, and in Rise of Kingdoms in general. And if you find that creative role like these guys have, you can be very impactful to your team during your specific time to shine. Here's another Constantine shining in the defense of the Shrine of Life as an example.
Yeah, well, let me ask you about that Constantine, Gecko. So the 4th skill of Constantine has always been a little perplexing to me on exactly how it works. It's a huge heal when you get to a certain point in the battle. Is that the sort of heal that happens once every hour or once every time the army leaves the city? Do you know exactly how that works, or do we need to do a little research?
It's a little bit of a question mark, right? Because in theory, if you shouldn't be out on the open field for an hour, but at the same time, if you leave your city and come back and go back in, does that timer reset? If I'm not mistaken, the timer does reset, which means, but I'm not going to put my name on it, because I remember a long time ago we asked about this to the folks of Lilith Gaming, and they explained if you go back in and out, it resets. It makes no sense to have an hour if you can go in and out and that's that, and it resets. But in Ark of Osiris, I mean, really, you're not going to be leaving the building and coming back in. Is that where you're trying to go with? What if Constantine leaves the building, goes back to his city, and then comes back?
Well, I believe the match has now ended.
Over. Oh, yeah. We haven't even paid attention because it was so one-sided at this stage. First of all, major GGs in the chat for the folks of NB2 and Overlord Ovie making it to the playoffs. The first finalist of Osiris League Season 1. Let's take a quick peek at the score here very quickly, because we have another match to hop into. What are we seeing very briefly? A lot of heals on both sides. Overlord, yet again, 8.5 million heals means they're going further down in their speed up count. Kills looking good. What can be said here? Chisco, there's nothing very special, is there?
Yes, there isn't anything special in that provision score either. Hardy har har. I think
That's
that folks here were in other places in the battlefield. I'm eager to see if in the next matchup they do some provisioning as well. Ovie held the structures, they grabbed the arcs. Really well fought battle by both sides. Very impressive play by everybody here, and eager to see what happens in the next matchup.
Yes, sir. So I will be leaving you guys right now, and we're going to go swap to the other match. So while we do that, we're going to take a quick 2-second break while we swap the screens around and do everything. So there goes that, and we'll be back in a moment. I know you guys can still hear me as I ramble on. We'll bring on the next set of casters. That is right. I am out. And Dragothian is coming in my place. Let's make sure this is very clear for all of you folks as we go into the match. Dragothian, are you with us?
I have always been with you guys. I listened to the whole thing, and it was definitely an exciting match previously. Really looking forward to seeing how this JWM and 1NB8 match is going to go now that they know that in the finals, whoever wins this match will be facing OV for the whole thing.
It looks like we have entered into the matchup, and this is going to be an exciting one. Two very powerful alliances. However, JWM sporting more power on the board, about 2 billion power versus the 2.8 billion power of JWM. Do you think that's going to influence the outcome of this battle, Dragothian?
I think we've seen over the course of the last few weeks that once you get to a certain number on that scale, that the power really just means how many speed ups are you going to be using. That being said, the higher on that scale you are, more than likely you'll be able to have those 5 full T5 marches on the battlefield to be able to deploy in real time, ready to go, versus being towards the 2.2, 2.3. You may have a few T4 marches on the battlefield, which isn't necessarily end of the world. But T5 have higher stats than T4. That's just the way it is.
They sure do. They march a little bit slower, which is incredibly relevant in Ark of Osiris League.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's worth it for the punch that they pack. And oh my goodness, is that punch fierce when it is backed by fully expertised legendary commanders, which will be the case for almost every set of commanders you'd see on the battlefield when you're watching alliances of this caliber.
Yeah, absolutely. And as this match kind of opens up, the standard flood, that you see outside of each one of these bases coming from JWM on the bottom right side in red, and then certainly on the top left side, 1NB8 sending out quite a few armies. Interested to see what task each one of these players is assigned to each one of these armies. One player can be doing 3 things at once. One player can be doing a singular role like we just talked about in the last match. Let's see what they do. I'm going to be very interested to see the strategy in play here because we saw last match where positioning at the arc towards the beginning, even a little early, really helped OV set the tone to go ahead and defeat NB2. Let's see if they do the same thing here, knowing that their partner alliance inside their kingdom was able to get really kind of sidetracked right off the gate with that. Let's see if 1NB8 decides to kind of counteract that and position themselves inside the match.
Yeah, I'll say they didn't just do it early. They did it at the literal very earliest opportunity possible. They marched right up the middle. They said, all right, I'm leaving my city and I'm going to the middle and I've got my job defined. And it was 20 plus marches, boom, right into the center. So we're talking about like 1/6 of their marches committed to that spot, which seems really aggressive to me to put that many marches in that position and somehow have enough to swarm all the structures. I don't know. We're going to have to watch that closely and see how that marries up to the strategies and tactics used in this particular battle, because we see there were 8 rallies in total. I see now only 7. So only 3 rallies part of 1NB8. Did they cancel? What happened?
I'd imagine so. Yeah, I'd imagine so. And if we're looking at, when we see that a possibility of canceling happen, we immediately try and go over to some of these altars to see if we can find one. And I really don't see a broken rally in the JWM side, which leads me to believe that maybe they just didn't get the right troop count or the right troops inside that rally, and they wanted to go ahead and restart it. And just like that, there's an eighth one that just got started and canceled again. So who knows what's happening?
I wonder what's going on there. At the beginning of the match, I saw only 7 rallies in place rather than 8 as well. And then they got that additional rally queued up and then canceled it. I wonder if there's some confusion on that side of the battlefield, or if they're using a distraction tactic of some kind. I don't know. We'll see how that unfolds. We've got only 2 minutes remaining until the middle row of structures becomes capturable. And so we're going to see all these armies marching up. In the last matchup, we saw an even lineup on both sides. Nobody really pressuring the other side until there were rallies to support. We'll see if the same sort of thing happens here, where people posture but they don't push forward. I would bet that JWM, however, is going to go aggressive and they're going to push forward.
Yeah, I agree. Both of these teams shown that they're very, very aggressive, very, very led by advancing tactics. They're not one to sit on their back heel and just kind of let the game come to them. They want to dictate the match. Clearly, this is something that both of these alliances have done time and time again to get their teams to this point in the alliance, in the Osiris League tournament. And, certainly when we're talking about what you can do to position yourself effectively, part of it's being at the Ark of Osiris, where the temple is at, kind of positioning yourself there. Certainly, again, like you said earlier, sending some rallies and breaking them around some altars, which should be opening up in less than a minute, and simultaneously making sure that you are ready to teleport forward once your obelisks get captured, which are happening right around the half-minute to 1.5-minute mark, depending on when you captured it. So there's going to be a lot of things happening here in the next minute or so.
Oh, yes. Well, there's already stuff happening. We see First Blood at the Desert Altar on the 1NB8 side of the battlefield. JWM posturing forward in a very, very aggressive way toward that altar. Ton of marches now coming from 1NB8 to support. 20 seconds remaining, and they've put a little bit of a buffer between where the 1NB8 marches are and where the JWM marches are. However, whoever marches into that first can then reinforce it with more of those troops. This is going to be a really intense, very important fight, and we see players from JWM dancing around this structure, trying to avoid getting hit so that they can get into it. Who goes into the structure first? It flips blue. It belongs to now 1NB8. They made it in there in time. Intense pressure on that structure at the very start of the game. We called the shot. We said JWM would go aggressive, and they are. Shrine of Life also under attack, and also on the other side of the map, Sky Altar, now owned by JWM.
With a quick emoji getting thrown out too, right at that Sky Altar 2 from JWM, just letting them know that, hey, we're here, we're ready to fight right off the bat. 1NB8 is definitely starting out on their back foot, and now they're going to have to spend some time sending some 1-minute rallies, which are exclusive to the Osiris League and Ark of Osiris content in this game, to get these structures back, because it's not a 1 army or a 2 army situation inside of these buildings. I saw at least 4 or 5 armies go inside that Sky Altar in favor of JWM. So you cannot sit there and just swarm it and expect to have a very quick capture. That being said, again, what did we talk about at the beginning? Posturing forward at the beginning near the Temple of Osiris is going to be critical, in conjunction with snagging some extra buildings at the very beginning, getting those first occupation scores, and then certainly being able to hopefully hold those and start to generate some significant points per minute advantage in favor of your alliance. And JWM is doing that to a T right now.
Yeah, on the topic of first occupation score, JWM has 1 minute and 35 seconds left to capture this Sky Altar. They've got a Cao Cao as the captain. Now this structure getting swarmed because 1NB8 realizes we don't have time to wait for a rally. We must hit this structure, or JWM is going to get a cool 750 points for the first occupation score. And with only 1 minute and 15 seconds before they get those points, I don't know if there's enough marches outside this structure to take it back before it flips over. This could be pretty close and pretty significant in giving JWM a point lead. Not only have they disrupted the flow of points for 1NB8, but they would get a lot of first occupation score, and it looks like the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9,
and
10
more
marches swarming are going to do the job.
Yeah, they're finally going to get it down, and yeah, it took that many because they, like you said, they knew that being under a minute now, they had no time to waste. And I think the problem that they ran into as well is they captured that obelisk so late, and that's their closest obelisk that they can get, that they weren't able to teleport forward and really have that rally capability be effective to capture that Sky Altar back, because that Sky Altar got captured so quickly by JWM. That being said, 1NB8 has gotten it back to even, but they are delayed. Now they're not going to get that first capture bonus for a little bit more time, 2.5 minutes. Their other altar is also under attack right now from a Saladin-led rally from JWM. It is getting swarmed down. It doesn't look like it's in danger of getting captured or taken away from them. But again, that's just more resources, more focus, more efforts needing to go elsewhere. And now that this is happening, 4 minutes left on the Ark of Osiris to spawn for the first time in this match. I am giddy with excitement, waiting for this to happen.
Well, let me interject, because we're watching Wu Zetian now defend the Desert Altar on the southern side of the map and get defeated. 1NB8 taking the Desert Altar from JWM. Very powerful pickup for them. This is one of the very most important structures to hold, because it is generating the literal most points per minute of all the structures that are available for capture. And there are a ton of 1NB8 armies nearby. So I think they're going to be able to hold on to this thing for a little while. Or it looks like some of them diverting to the center, because JWM has a massive presence at the Temple of Osiris. That is going to be very, very hard to contend with. For 1NB8, they have no presence there almost whatsoever. I don't know how they're going to be able to accumulate enough marches in the center to contest what JWM is doing. And the problem is that if they try to go in one march at a time, it's not going to be enough. They're going to have to get like 20 marches together before they actually go apply pressure there. So what they would need to do, in my opinion, is double down on the structure game. I think already this arc is looking like it's going to be really hard for them to deal with. And we do see Shrine of War to the right of the Temple of Osiris is under heavy pressure. Wu Zetian at the helm defending.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was just looking at that same exact spot. So when we're looking at that, you've got, what, 15 armies or so there from 1NB8. Most of them are at least half health or lower. About half and half are decently specced out with more troops than half. But that shrine is definitely going to go down with how many armies from 1NB8 is there. But really, here's what's going to happen. So just kind of seeing the battlefield and knowing how 1NB8 has played in the past, they take that Shrine of War, they make sure they hold it, have some troops there to defend, but then relocate most, if not all, those armies straight into the middle from the backside. In addition, I definitely will notice that there's going to be a rally coming from 1NB8 going to maybe the obelisk, or maybe to one of the outposts or something like that, that will move people forward in an organized fashion. So just like you said, we're not putting one army in the middle, one at a time, two at a time, three at a time. It's a 5, 6, 7 army set up, ready to go. They break that rally at the backside of that center lane where the Ark is at. That way they've got 2 ready-made armies, and they start sandwiching the folks that are in the middle together, and that's how they've won Osiris League matches in the past couple weeks.
Yeah, well, I will say I really like a good structure game, and 1NB8 has it. They've got more structures now. Their points per minute game is about to go through the roof when those convert over to be point generating. For those of you who are newer to Ark of Osiris League, you have to have tagged the structure, have your troops in the structure for a full 3 minutes before it starts generating points for you. But that is about to flip majorly in the direction of 1NB8. And it looks like the Desert Altar that belongs to the JWM side of the map is going to flip back over to being in JWM's control. Interestingly, I see a Frederick the First is leading the rally here against that altar. That's not a common choice that we see being made. What do you think about that?
You know, there's times and places for stuff like that. That he is a leadership and a conquering commander, so he is custom fit from a talent perspective to make that happen. But in this level of gameplay, you really start to notice that you're going to have singular troop type armies, like that Saladin-led army rally that you saw before, and like the YSG garrison that you just saw before. They had full archer, full cav underneath of Saladin. That being said, when you're right beside your own obelisk on your side of the map, sending a mixed troop rally is not the worst thing in the world, especially if you've got 10 other armies sitting there also to reinforce with multiple types of troops, and then also swarming the building as well. It's not the worst thing in the world to do that. In fact, in this case, certainly was very effective.
Indeed. A lot of pressure on the far side of the battlefield. Shrine of War getting swarmed by JWM. We see Constantine at the helm, but not for much longer, with 23 seconds remaining before it would start to take over for points for them. That's going to go back into the hands of JWM. There is a Saladin rally leading that charge. And if we look over onto the other side of the battlefield, the Sky Altar is being attacked and counter rallied. Wow. There's a rally and a counter rally on the Sky Altar. Wu Zetian is in the Sky Altar. Very, very aggressive play, trying to take all 4 of the altars. And it looks like it's not going to work out, which means we got to move our eyes to the center of the map by the Temple of Osiris.
Oh boy. And when I go there, I start just seeing a sea of red all over it from JWM, moving that arc back. I expected to see a lot more 1NB8 over here, but like they said earlier, right? They got started on their back foot. The blue team with 1NB8, they some buildings captured that they didn't expect. So they had to address that. And then, like you said, start to play a little bit more of the structure game, which they did to really good effect. And that's why they're leading right now by over 700 points. And they have a points per minute advantage because the buildings that JWM then had to recapture are not generating points for their team just yet. So what did that do? That gave JWM the opportunity to go ahead and secure that middle, especially with how much presence they had at the very beginning, and go ahead and just easily bring this first arc back. That being said, the first arc is not always the most important. That point total scales up, and those second, third, and possibly fourth, depending on how quickly these things get captured, can make all the difference in this match.
Now we've got an important decision to make here. JWM carrying the arc. Do they score it? I think they have to, because they're down on the points per minute game. And what I'll say is that there was a trade-off being made. 2 completely different strategies being deployed. The folks from 1MB8 played the structure strategy. They said, we're going to win by having more structures. The folks from JWM, their strategy is to hold some number of structures while getting arcs. And so far, that is working out in their favor. When they cap this off, they're going to be up in points, and they'll be down in points per minute by not by much and not for long.
You're absolutely right, and they're just about to capture that first arc with ease, probably the easiest arc capture this entire day, and certainly today, and maybe this entire playoffs. That's probably one of the easiest captures I've seen for any of these top-tier alliances in this last bracket of 16, 8, 4, and now heading to 2 next week. I cannot wait until this finals happens. I'm excited to see who wins this match to go and face Ovie, the fresh winner from last match. And as you can see on the map, buildings still continually blinking everywhere. 9 rallies in the rally counter right now. I'm really interested to hear your thoughts, Chiskel, on what the next step is for 1NB8. I think that, they're down right now, but they've also kind of got the structure game going, just losing that Shrine of War here at the top. What's your thoughts, Chiskel, on what they should do going forward to really start to take this match over in their favor like they're used to?
Yeah, well, I would say they had the structure game going, but losing that Shrine of War signifies for me that now that JWM has shifted their focus out of the center and back to the structures, they're applying enough pressure to start to get control of the matchup. I think that from this position, and by the way, when MB8 about to lose their Shrine of Life, look at that, another Freddy rally. I think we've got to talk about Frederick the First here being used as a rally leader. What is it that they know? What is it that they know that we don't know here? If we look at the battle report for that structure, can I pull that up? It doesn't look like it can. I would be eager to see who they're using as the secondary for those matchups to see what pairing they think is better than using a Saladin primary. Because if we look down slightly at the Desert Altar, I see, yes, that is being attacked by a Saladin primary. It looks like now that JWM has shifted its focus away from the arc to the structures, they're now in the driver's seat of this matchup. And we see even counter rallies being deployed here, which I think is a pretty cool tactic. It is a pretty cool tactic because you can launch that 1-minute rally. We do see that they've launched a counter rally to try to put a lot of pressure onto the assaulting forces.
Absolutely. And just to touch base on your Freddy mechanic there, I think again one of the best mixed troop ralliers in the game is Frederick, and especially in the Ark of Osiris League and just Ark of Osiris in general, because the structures are all going to be affected by all the talent, by most, if not all, the talents that Freddy has to bring to bear on his talent trees, and then also his skills really start to be put into effect. The heals, the damage over time, one of the best primary nukes in the game when that Frederick is maxed out. Certainly not going to be a bad thing to rally with, especially if you've got the open field covered and made sure that you've got that open field secured so that you can't be swarmed down. That's the only downside to a mixed troop rally, is having that swarming capability in effect for your opponent, and then also not having reinforcements of your own.
Yeah, well, here's the thing about Freddy, though. His third skill, damage you deal to cities. Well, that's completely irrelevant, right?
Yep.
And his fourth skill is completely irrelevant because it lets you bring more troops, but like, I don't know, is the teeny amount of troops more important than doing more damage? Absolutely not. You got plenty of troops in that rally. So with only 2 skills being relevant, I find myself very surprised that he is being used in this capacity. And to your point, he does have really high single target damage, but he doesn't have any anti-swarm technology at all. If you swarm a Freddy, he's going to drop really, 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 really fast. He's got a heal in his second skill, 10% chance to trigger a heal for 1,000, but that's it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I'm saying. You need to have the open field secured with a Freddy rally, because if you don't, you're going to get swarmed down relatively easily. And if you don't have reinforcements sitting there ready to go ahead and just make that rally stand up when you are able to reinforce it with your open field armies right sitting beside it, then you're going to be in good shape if you're able to do that. And that's kind of where I see JWM using that Freddy capability, is on their own side, rallying objectives that got taken away from them, using a quick rally from a Frederick. And a lot of these folks that are in JWM, I know, have Max Fredericks, because early game inside of this game, Frederick is a very, very powerful open field and rallying commander.
Yeah, I still find myself wondering, though, right? Like, if you own the open field anyways, does it even matter who you're rallying with? You're going to win that rally regardless. So I wonder what insight they're working off of, because it's not just once we've seen the rally where they're like, it's all I have, I better rally with it. They're using this a lot, and they even rallied the Shrine of Life on the opposing side of the battlefield with it. So I'm curious if we can figure out what that insight is, because if there is something we all should be doing, I'd be curious to take it away from this matchup. We do see that Shrine of Life on the top part of the map is going to flip back over to 1 NB8. Wu Zetian is defending for JWM, but it's not quite going to be enough to hold down that structure. And otherwise, the map is looking pretty even.
Yeah, it sure is. And like you said, that Shrine of Life is going to go down, but it is taking quite a bit to do so. A Wu-Richard combination inside of that structure, that heal from Richard, making sure that it takes every single army and rally that's hitting that structure to take it down. JWM continuing to put on the pressure. 3 altars in their favor right now, almost having all of them ticking in their favor too, with 20 seconds left on that desert altar, and it's gonna capture, just based off of what I can see, with having only 1 rally and 1 single army that's about to go down from 1 NB8. I think they're going to be able to capture that and start ticking some positive points in JWM's favor. And with the score looking the way it is, what do you think, Chisco? Should they start really, and when I say they, I mean 1 NB8, as I look in the middle, it's going to kind of answer my question. Should they start focusing on the Ark to make sure that they can get back into this game, losing as many points per minute as they have?
Yeah, if they don't get the Ark, they're in big, big trouble. They're currently sitting at 280 points per minute for 1 NB8 and 740 points per minute for JWM. JWM really showing that where their focus goes, so does their point gain. Really pretty incredible to see when they doubled down on structures. It ticked in their favor, and now that they're back in the middle, they're casting their gaze on that Ark of Osiris, which spawns in a minute and 30 seconds. I don't know what's going to happen in the middle here, but I think 1 NB8 has got to apply a lot more pressure if they want this to go well for them. I see a lot of armies from JWM starting to control that part of the battlefield, and I see some commanders speckled here and there that offer buffs to all of the other commanders nearby. I see a Constantine in the mix. I see an Ethelfled there to do some debuffs. I think it's pretty solid that there is some amount of that mixed in. I actually do see, and I'm sort of surprised, I do see a Boudica primary floating around in the middle. I'm so confused. What's happening in my life right now?
I think we all are just a little bit. I do, just to kind of extend on what you were talking about, I see quite a few Alexes on the map. That is significant, especially if they are maxed out in expertise, because that shield that they throw alongside of the damage debuff is very, very, very nice to have in these group fights where AoE is king. I do see one NBA really starting to put the screws to JWM and what's inside the middle right beside the Temple of Osiris. And here's the struggle, right? So here's the struggle for any alliance in this position. You need to commit to the middle, right, to get this arc, because it's going to be 3,500 points. You need those 3,500 points just to get back in relevance, seeing a almost over double points per minute difference in favor of JWM right now. You need this arc in the worst way possible. When you start to commit more and more troops inside the middle, that's less armies that are on the outside. That's less armies that you're rallying with. And ultimately, again, JWM, if they're doing it right, they'll notice this, delay, do what they can to grab the arc, but certainly start to throw rallies out like crazy. And just like that, it's pretty much an even rally count, 3 to 4. I'm interested to see if the red team starts to throw out 5, 6, 7 rallies while one NB8 starts to commit more and more troops to the middle.
And while those rallies are happening, we see a snag. The Ark is moving down the field. Cao Cao as the carrier for JWM, making their way toward the outpost at rapid speed. I believe that the fastest combination in the game would be a Cao Cao and Khan, fully expertise. Cao Cao is the primary for those mobility talents, and we are hoofing it down the battlefield, literally hoofing it. They've got cavalry here, and they are making their way post-haste all the way to their own outpost. They're trying in one NB8 to chase down this carrier. However, this grab was highly effective, and there's not enough armies nearby for one NB8 to make a move on this carrier. This is going to be a very, very challenging situation for one NB8 if this does capture in favor of JWM. In fact, just by moving the Ark this far down the battlefield in JWM's favor, means that one NB8 is going to have to go through a monumental effort to change the tide of this particular Ark capture. And guess what? This carrier is still going.
He doesn't want to stop. And actually, I think that one NB8 just did them a favor, because once this double C leaves battle, he's going to get that bonus that you talked about with having double C primary, having that mobility talent tree, and then having a Genghis second. He has to be out of battle to get that movement speed bonus, but now he's also less than 50% health, which means he's going to get that talent bonus, the movement speed bonus from charge, to go ahead and continue to go even faster than he already has been. Wow, I'm blown away by the speed of this one. I'm blown away by how they were able to snag that arc, having seen as many blue armies as I saw around that Temple of Osiris, and just kind of, we had a John Wick moment earlier in the last match. This is kind of the JWM John Wick version of it, where they went ahead and snagged it, and he did not go down. He's going to capture that arc right there, putting JWM securely in the lead with over 8,000 points in favor for JWM, and still having that points per minute benefit.
I don't know if you saw it, but I thought it was pretty cool when it happened. The carrier literally throwing some shade. They did an emoji with the Cao Cao shades. Pretty hilarious. They've now capped this thing 19,689 in the favor of JWM to 11,342 in the blue team side, one NB8. I think this is going to be a tough matchup now for one NB8. They got to do a lot of things, and they've got to do them well. They need to go get some structures and hold them, and they need to run arcs. I actually am a little surprised that JWM capped the arc at all, because I don't think they needed to. I think they could have run that arc back to their side and held onto it and said, good game. The only way that one NB8 can get back into this match now is if they win the structure game and they get the next arc. And that is going to be very, very hard to do, given that we've already seen that when JWM focuses on an objective, they're able to successfully accomplish it. I think this is going to be a tough matchup for one NB8 to battle back into.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's definitely a solid strategy that they could, should, and probably would have used to hold that arc, to really make it to where it's a structure game. And like you said, JWM has the structure game down pat. 1NBA does well in structure game too. But whenever that's all JWM would have to focus on, they don't need to commit troops to the middle. That's more troops they can start putting in their garrisons. And even if it's an even split, right, where they did just end up losing an altar at the top right there. But even if it's an even split, or if they have that 3-minute delay, they have such a significant points buffer right now with having that second arc. It may not make enough of a difference to even have that not be captured. And like you said, I think that ultimately, when you're talking about what JWM does really, really well and what 1NB8 does really, really well, JWM really kind of has the favor because they're able to move a little bit more effectively and be where they need to be just that split second sooner, to be where they need to be for the structures, and also have those armies in the middle to grab the arc at the right time, in the right place. And it looks like also with the right commanders too.
Yeah, I mean, one of my mantras here is to play to win rather than to play to not lose. What that means in this context is they need to take big risks, and they may have a small chance of winning if they take these big risks, but there is a chance of winning. Whereas if they continue on their current course, it's not looking great. So in this case, they've got to take some really risky plays where they rally some stuff and hope they win. Maybe they pull the defense on some of the things that they have in their backfield to try to be more aggressive in the front. And, if JWM calls them on it, if they see that the defenses are weaker, then they take those things, and NBA ends up losing. But if they don't take big risks right now, they are going to have a very, very hard time winning this match.
I agree. 1NBA is definitely doing what they need to do. However, I just keep looking all over the battlefield, and you see a couple buildings blinking in favor of, going in the way of 1NBA. They took an outpost on the JWM side. They're attacking the Shrine of Life, which is one of the farthest buildings away from what you have to support on your defensive side. You've got a Genghis-led rally that's going up against the Wu Zetian, really kind of putting the screws to what this garrison is looking like. But JWM, again, knowing what's happening, knowing what they need to do, positioning troops to go ahead and reinforce where they need to, knowing that there's really nothing open field there from 1NBA to support that rally, so they're just not doing it. And then at the top right, with the desert altar on the 1NBA side, again, more rallies coming from JWM, just keeping 1NBA honest so they can't completely push all their forces forward and start to try and take these structures away from JWM en masse. And when you are on JWM's side, you're going to have a points favor. And right now they've got that 8,000 point buffer in favor of JWM, and they just need to keep the pressure up, but also don't take too many risks with JWM. I know that's against their mantra and certainly how we play, but when you're talking about getting to the last match in the Osiris League playoffs for all the marbles, the whole shebang, first season, you got to make sure that you're doing the right thing at the right time. And I think both of these alliances are trying their best to do that, JWM being just a little bit more effective at this point in time.
Yeah, I think the thing that JWM needs to do is just kind of hold their structures. They get their own altar back, and they're cruising. With this point lead, they then will need to move to the center and make sure that they don't they prevent the enemy from capturing the arc. And I want to rephrase there, right? Because they don't actually have to capture the next arc. They just have to stop 1NB8 from capturing the arc. That said, 1NB8 sitting at 740 points per minute. This is starting to go in the direction that they need, although they're about to lose this major point-earning Sky Altar, which was helping them get that. JWM is sitting at 410 points per minute.
They sure are. And again, 1NB8 doing what they need to do. They're trying to get those heavy points per minute structures in their favor and trying to keep them. But just as we say that, JWM taking that Sky Altar back in favor of the red team. And with that being said, that's going to nullify that progress that they just made, because now it's back to a 590 to 410 points per minute differential, still in favor of 1NB8, but they need big points per minute, in addition to having in the middle the presence that they've got, having this arc being spawned in just over 2 minutes, having another Desert Altar rally here at the bottom, which does not look like it's going to be going in favor of either one right off the bat. We're really going to have to kind of pay attention to that one and see who's going to be able to reinforce the best or have enough swarm to take down with that Wu in the garrison really kind of holding its own. I think it just needs a few more reinforcements from JWM, and it may actually be able to hold up. We'll have to see how that goes.
Yeah, I see. Here's a counter rally. Freddy is the primary. Who is the secondary that they're using to Freddy? There must be an insight. Let's see if we can glean here who the secondary commander is. I see Freddy.
Yeah,
is it Yi Seong-Gye?
I have to see what the skill looks like when it pops off. I think it is YSG. Yep.
I think it's YSG. So that's an interesting pairing because the fourth skill on Yi Seong-Gye is going to elevate the active skill damage by 50%. And we know that Freddy has the highest active skill damage in the game. So the thing that they're trying to do there is to really do a ton of damage. Yi Seong-Gye is going to generate a lot of rage, which is pretty cool too. Yi Seong-Gye is also offering some anti-swarm with the AoE. I think that's an interesting strategy. This structure, however, getting swarmed so heavily, I think it might tip over. I think it might tip over to 1MB8. It's going to be close.
You just see that meter going up, up, down, up, down. It's literally like a ping pong ball just dropping and bouncing on the ground. It's going to be interesting to see. They have enough armies, 1MB8 does, to take this structure from a swarm or a reinforcement standpoint inside of that YSG-led rally that Michelle is running. It's going dangerously low. That rally that Michelle from 1MB8 is currently manning is going down very quickly. That may break. That being said, you can still swarm that structure. Now that that rally has broken, let's see if the Wu structure can now be held, knowing that all those armies that are currently on JWM's side are really, really low after swarming that other rally and trying to swarm other swarmers. There's just so much happening right here. It's hard to tell who's hitting what. All I know is all the blue stuff is hitting all the red stuff. That's all I can say.
Yeah, well, I can add a little color there, which is that Wu Zetian is the queen of anti-swarm. She becomes stronger whenever she takes skill damage attacks, and that is both from her talents and from the skills that are available to her in the support tree. She also is going to do, if expertised, damage back to the attackers and silence them on occasion, which is very, very powerful, and it's working. They're holding the structure. Who is the secondary to Wu Zetian here? Is it Richard I? Is that what they're doing? Richard I would bring a bunch of anti-swarm too.
Yeah, I believe so. I'm trying to see the different shields, and I see Alex shields going all over the place. I see Charles shields. I see Richard shields. I'm trying to see what's coming out from that Wu structure, and it's kind of hard to do so. I'm looking for that fan from Richard. I think that's probably what it is. Yep, you see the heal going off above them. I got to say that that's a Richard second Wu primary, and that is a very, very tanky, especially for the Ark League and Ark of Osiris matchups. This is one of the tankiest combinations in the game. You can see it. I mean, this has been swarmed for well over 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and it has not gone down. It's insane to watch.
Yeah, it is pretty incredible. I don't know if folks will have Wu Zetian made generally available. That would be pretty swell, so that everybody has an opportunity to get this commander, because my goodness, she is very, very powerful in defensive structure holding. I mean, just like we're watching this thing, it's pretty nuts. The Ark has been active in the middle, but I'm having more fun watching this, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I've been going back and forth. I see that the Ark did just drop, and it is on the side of 1NB8, which they desperately need to capture that Ark to get back into this match with just under 21 minutes to go. There's enough time if they can capture this to go ahead and get one more Ark out, but it's going to be well contested for JWM. And like you said earlier, this is one of those situations where I don't need to outrun everybody. I just need to outrun the guy that's the closest to me. So if you can go ahead and snag that Ark and take that back to one of the structures in favor of 1NB8, you can start that timer back over for the Ark to pop one more time in this match. And with 4,000 and 4,500 points respectively for those next two Arks, that won't be the whole difference, but it'll be pretty darn close. Actually, it will be the whole difference.
I'll be honest. honest, I'm having a lot of fun watching down south the Desert Altar still getting attacked. And by the way, a second rally hitting the structure now with Saladin as the primary. They are really trying to grab this structure. I don't know if we can get the camera to get a peek at the Desert Altar with Wu Zetian defending. This is pretty amazing to watch unfold. There's still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 armies trying to swarm and the rally hitting. Wow. The Ark of Osiris looks like it's not going anywhere right now. The Desert Altar still under a tremendous amount of pressure. JWM bringing a lot of support to defend it. This is pretty fun to watch, and it's so close to flipping.
It's very close. And now with all the swarming armies going back with sad faces and for 1NB8, now it doesn't have the support that it had prior. And now it's just that rally. And with Wu still holding so strong, I cannot believe that garrison held as well as it did with 2 rallies on it, 10 plus armies between the last 3, 4, 5 minutes that Desert Altar has been getting hit. Still no flip in favor of 1NB8, and now it's getting reinforced even further to the point where I just don't see 1NB8 being able to take this Desert Altar. This is a huge, huge statement defense for JWM.
Yeah, that is really quite unbelievable. The Ark still in the center, huge number of marches all around it. It's probably very hard to click. However, 1NB8 making a snag, starting to move it a little bit in a direction that might be valuable, but then it dropped. Okay, there's so much AoE and the Ark of Osiris now. It's going to be hard to move this thing anywhere. AoE standing for area of effect damage. This is going to be very, very challenging to move around the field because there's so many players here. I think it's going to be hard to actually click the darn thing, although JWM seems to have more of a presence. Maybe it's about even. I honestly am having a hard time telling who's ahead here.
Once you get this many armies clumped together around a little golden thing right in the middle, that golden thing obviously being the Ark of Osiris, which just got captured and dropped all in the same manner of half a second. It's just, this is where your AoE, like you said, that area of effect damage really starts to shine. The Sun Tzus, the YSGs, those types of AoE type of damage is really going to start going crazy. You see all the arrows and fire raining from above, and then also on top of all that, you want some AoE debuff type commanders. So your Ethelfleds, your Barcas, your Constantines, and then AoE buffs like your Alexes and your debuffs again from Richard. And just there's so many things that you can do to hit multiple armies on the battlefield. And that there's going to be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 armies sometimes in one spot when you're talking about being in that center lane on this map. I love these fights. I always love seeing these because, one, you never know what's going to happen. Even if you think you know, you might not know. There may be something a little bit different. And 1NB8 seems to be kind of positioning themselves to be the victor of this massive battle here. Being closer to their side, I think it's easier to reinforce, and that's why positioning is so important.
Yeah, with only 16 minutes and 30 seconds remaining, if 1NB8 does not capture this Ark very, very, very soon, we're going to see that they're in big trouble because they haven't been able to make a successful offensive run at the structures owned by JWM. Which means their point per minute gain is not making up for the gap in their score. They're not going to have enough Arks of Osiris to run in order to make up that gap. I mean, they really need to run some sort of Hail Mary plays here where there is a highly unlikely chance that they'll be successful, but at least it gives them a chance because if they continue on their current trajectory, there, I think, is no way for them to win.
Yeah, it's going to be very difficult. I mean, it literally is an 8,400 point game. That these next two arcs are going to be 8,500 points. So this is going to be interesting to see how this plays out. This is taking 1NB8 forever to get out, and JWM is doing exactly what we said they needed to do, which is delay. Don't let them capture it. Yep. If you don't capture it, it's fine, but just don't let them capture it.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I think on the flip side here, the approach that I think 1NB8 has to take, and I'm not saying this is a great approach, but like if you're throwing a Hail Mary pass right, where you're trying to score a touchdown with no time left on the clock, you'd have to rally the Shrine of Life, the altars, the Shrine of War, and the obelisks all at the same time and hope that you win all of those fights. And I think that's the only way they can win, right? Like, you have to literally rally all of those things right now and still get the Ark. And if they don't launch those rallies, like, I don't think they can win at all.
They've got 6 right now, and I think that they're doing exactly that, knowing that they need to get everything and then some, right? Plus this Ark, plus the next one. It's just that's, if that was a thing, everybody would be doing it all the time. You know, it's one of those things where, yeah, all we need to do is just get all the buildings and also have enough people in the middle to carry this Ark back quickly, efficiently, and capture it so that we can go ahead and get the next one too. And then also these rallies need to do really, really well too. We need to make sure we get all those rallies hitting simultaneously across the map. It's going to be, it's difficult. It's an uphill sledding battle. And like you said, one that they need to make. And now being down to 4 rallies here, but 3 red blinking buildings on the JWM defensive side. They've done what they need to do, but JWM is doing what they need to do too, making sure that they delay as much as possible on that Ark and have just enough support troops around these defensive structures to reinforce and either delay the capture of some of these buildings in favor of one MB8 or just completely stop them from doing it altogether. And right now it's looking like they're just going to stop them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it's a great plan to run all those
but
rallies,
it's the only
right?
one.
but it's the only one. That's right.
Yeah.
It's the only one that has like a 2% chance of working, right? So like that's why it's a recommendation. They have a 2% chance to win versus what will potentially be sort of a guaranteed slow move toward a loss, which, like, man, they are rallying for things. I mean, they're doing it. They are doing it. They've got a rally going on a Shrine of Life, but Wu Zetian is holding very, very strong. They got a Yi Song-Ye rally right now on the Desert Altar, and it looks like they're using Yi Song-Ye and Alexander the Great. And Wu Zetian is holding. And they're rallying the Sky Altar. It looks like they're using Alexander the Great. And couldn't tell who the secondary was, but Wu Zetian is holding. Looks like
Richard.
Interesting choice. This is Wu Zetian, man. Pretty backbreaking.
You know, the folks that have Wu Zetian inside of these structures, they saved their sculptures up for a significant period of time because this is a commander that you can only get in Season 2 of the Lost Kingdom, which for half servers on the game have already completed. The other half, they're either in Season 1 or you're about to go in Season 2. And hopefully get yourself the opportunity to unlock Wu, who is obviously, like you can see, one of, if not the best garrison commander in the game, especially pairing up with defensive commanders like Richard, and then also offensive-based commanders like YSG and Saladin are also very good pairings for the Wu-led garrison of any of these buildings, especially in Ark of Osiris. But they invested so many universal sculptures to get these Wu commanders for each one of their governors maxed out. That means they probably couldn't max out Tamiris, or they couldn't max out Edward, who are also very, very new commanders who are more geared towards open field and rally versus garrison. So this was a dedicated decision by JWM to go ahead and make sure that they had one of the best garrison commanders in the game for matches like this, where one NB8 has been throwing those rallies out nonstop, but just not being able to take the structures because of the talent inside of those buildings.
It looks like the carrier is trying to score the Ark at the outpost, but they can't. There might not be enough room. They're running even further back right now, which they're all out of time. We're leaving the window in which another Ark would spawn in for them to be able to score. To sort of touch back on your point earlier about Wu Zetian, she's really only available to a very small number of players in the game. And if she is truly the unequivocal must-have commander for structure defense, I sure do hope that they make her more generally available. Otherwise, it becomes a bit more of a win more situation, and it'll be hard for other folks to battle into opposing Wu Zetians. To your point, you know, you would need 690 legendary universal commander sculptures in order to have expertise to this commander, at least for most alliances that would have unlocked her at all, which is a pretty major commitment.
Absolutely. I mean, you have to have Wu right now. You have to have won one, being controlling the ziggurat, controlling different things inside of that game mode, which is obviously separate from Ark of Osiris. But just to give you some perspective on the depth of this game and then how it leads into and affects what you're watching right now with the Osiris League playoffs. That's how in depth this game is. The need for those types of commanders to deploy inside of the Ark type match. What really kind of make this game so nice. And then also just being the viewer, right? I can view, I can cast, I can see that this Ark is really just kind of zigzagging all over the place as well, which I'm not quite sure what the play is there. But yeah, I mean, I think that JWM has done an excellent job in positioning themselves to be in the position that they're in, and seeing just over 9 minutes left in this match with a 10,000 point advantage. 2 arcs are not going to cut it. Even if they capture it right now, that would leave them roughly 2 minutes left to get an arc from the center to another building, which I think you need at least 2.5 to 3 minutes to move if you are undeterred. And if I know JWM, I'm pretty sure that they would at least tap an arc carrier once or twice to make sure that they weren't able to go anywhere undeterred.
Yes. I am not sure where we want the camera to look now. Perhaps the desert altar would be a good spot to peek into toward the top of the map. We see JWM is holding that with a Richard I primary. There is a rally with Yi Song-Ye primary battling against it. With that said, with the amount of time left remaining in the match, as this arc is brought back to the 1MB8 side of the map, I think we're out of time. In order for them to come back, again, they've got to take all the structures like right now. And even then, I don't think there's enough time. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it takes 3 minutes to capture these structures. With 8 minutes left, that means they'd only get 5 minutes. And even if they captured their buildings back that they've already lost on their side, and then also do the same thing to JWM's, which again, like we said earlier, if it was that easy, they would have done it already. I think JWM has kind of locked this up and done exactly what they've needed to do. I love seeing Tamiris' skills go off, by the way. It's one of the coolest graphic animations in the game with those green poison arrows coming in. I think JWM has done a fantastic job in positioning themselves and making sure that they have exactly what they needed, where they needed it, when they needed it, which is, again, the theme of today. Ovie did the same exact thing in the previous matchup. And then this one NB8 has had a significant struggle holding back the surge from JWM while also capturing the arc. That's been their struggle, and one that they haven't really seen yet in these playoffs. They were able to do that to their opponent in previous matches versus being able to have that be done to them.
Yeah, both sides playing incredibly well in this Ark of Osiris League Final Four battle. JWM ultimately looks like is going to be the winner of this matchup. The score now 28,443 to 35,850 with 6 minutes, 47 seconds remaining. There's not enough time for an arc to spawn in. We're looking at 360 points per minute for 1MD8 and 820 for JWM. Wow. I mean, I am just astounded at how outrageously effective Wu Zetian with Richard I has been on the battlefield. A lot of synergy between those commanders. I was surprised to see Freddy with Yi Song-Ye being used in rallies, but we see that being very, very effective. Meanwhile, in the previous matchup, we saw a lot of Constantine as the primary for defense. Didn't see a lot of Wu Zetian in that matchup. And we saw a lot of Saladin-led rallies. So it looks like there's a couple different approaches that the teams that will be entering into the finals do use. And that is going to be really interesting to see. Ovie battling against JWM in the final.
Yeah, I agree. And when we're talking, we're talking about Saladin being a rally leader, and he's one of the best ones in the game, either as a primary or a second, with Genghis being primary or second on the other side, or even Mina to a certain extent would work really well. I think what really need to start really focusing on for the last 5.5 minutes of this match as it ends, knowing that JWM has really kind of secured it, and we're just waiting to go ahead and crown them the Eastern Division, or whatever you want to call it, champions going into the final round. We spoke on it quite a few times this match, seeing Freddy YSG as a rally combination and watching it be so effective. I think what we need to understand is there's a difference between effectiveness and efficiency. I think Freddy YSG is very effective. It is very effective, but it might not be the most efficient, being a mixed troop army versus, again, like you just said, a Saladin Genghis, or Saladin having only one type of troop for that rally to be so effective, but it's also not quite as it's also not as easy to be efficient because you can only have one troop type. So what I mean by that is those Freddy YSG rallies do significant damage, but they're easily refillable and you can add more armies of your own of varying types. You don't have to necessarily have just cav, just infantry, just archers.
Yeah, that is super relevant. For certain combinations of commanders, you can find yourself in a situation where, gosh, putting the wrong type of troop into the rally makes the whole rally way, way less efficient.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. That Saladin, and obviously with Genghis, needing two of his skills, needing to have a full cav army inside of that rally. If one archer, one infantry, one siege, heavens forbid, joins that rally, it literally cuts the effectiveness in half. So really needing to have very, very coherent and cohesive communication between all of these alliances, definitely having most, if not all of that. I think that you can see that play out on the battlefield where you see, I need somebody over here to help with this Wu structure being defended with the desert altar or the sky altar that they had at the very bottom. They have that. They all have that. And, as the match kind of continues to wind down, I guess we can start maybe looking forward to next week. What are you thinking? JWM versus Ovie, Ovie being the dark horse here, JWM being the incumbent powerhouse. What are you thinking?
Oh, man. I am not sure. They're using different commanders and different strategies. I think that the commander choices with the Wu Zetian showing up literally everywhere and every time that JWM had a structure showed a level of coordination that was very impressive. I mean, literally every time JWM structure, they swapped the right captains in for the defense, which is not easy to do. I don't know how they're coordinating that. If that means that they've got commanders marching down the field to swap in, or if that means that they've got already in the rally the right set of commanders there and then they swap after they've won. Either way, it's a pretty impressive display of coordination.
Totally agree. And what I've seen, and I know we've both seen this, multiple times throughout these playoffs, is what these alliances are doing. And this is kind of the next level that they've gotten to when you're sending a rally, right? So say you send a full infantry rally to go and take an objective. You send that with your rally commanders, whether that be Alex Richard or Alex Charles or Richard Charles or however you want to structure it. I would prefer Alex in pretty much any of those combinations to be the primary being a rally. But, we see, instead of joining with a random commander with a full infantry march to join that rally, knowing that they're going to need to not only take that structure but also keep it, they're sending defensive garrison teched commanders inside of those rallies so that when they take that structure, they just swap over, like you said, and now they've got a fully defensible, fully procced out garrison commander, proper garrison commander in that structure, ready-made, ready to go.
Yeah, that is a level of coordination that really is certainly above and beyond what we were doing in the Tigers, and makes a lot of sense that it is working very, very effectively. Mm-hmm. There sure is a lot you can coordinate here in Ark of Osiris League. It's a highly choreographed experience, to be perfectly honest.
It really is. And as the match kind of winds down to 1 minute here, we see just open field fights. I think everybody's just starting to kind of poke around and have some fun, knowing that JWM has really secured this match in their favor with just under 43,000, probably going to end with 44-ish thousand points, maybe 45, just to go ahead and put a nail in the coffin. I think that great game to both teams here. still rallies going out. That's a testament to these teams, from 1NB8 and from JWM, still sending some rallies, still engaging on the battlefield. I think that's their way of kind of high-fiving, good game, well playing each other. And I think that both of these teams, knowing what it took to get here and then ultimately what was at stake in this matchup, they've put their all into it. They've put everything they possibly could. And with Gecko going through some of these point totals, everybody got their point structures. Everybody got their points from a sculpture standpoint, with some very, very high totals in favor of JWM. 666 was 130K points at the very end. He's probably going to be our champion of Egypt.
Yeah, well played by everyone in this matchup. Incredibly fun to watch. Extremely high level of skill from all players involved. And there it is. It flips over to victory for JWM, champion of Egypt, with a score of 132,000 points. That is a pretty substantial individual score. And if we look, we do see that JWM had a slightly higher provision score, but provisions doesn't tell the whole story here. It looks like the arts were the difference maker, and the occupation score was what really tipped things over.
Absolutely. And then the secondary thing that you always need to look at right in that second section, look at the kills. Almost a 3-to-2 advantage kill ratio there, and then obviously that lending also to the units healed, which is not really that big of a deal. But I don't think that 1NB8 necessarily ran out of healing speed ups in a matchup like this. They used everything they had. There was probably some universals used. I mean, if they needed to, they definitely would have used those. Those kills tell a story. They were dominant, and I think a lot of those kills honestly came from the rallies that were on those structures that had Wu as garrison. I wonder if 666 was one of those garrison commanders that has Wu.
Yeah, interesting question. Garrison commander or rally leader, either way, huge number of points going out on the battlefield. Maybe there were swarm and stuff too. You can get a lot of points that way. High number of teleports used by both sides. This was a fun matchup to watch for sure.
Yeah, I can't complain at all. Definitely a good game to both teams here. JWM being the victor. I cannot believe we finally have our finals match. JWM versus Ovie. We cannot wait to bring this to you. Looking forward to seeing y'all next week in the studio of Gecko, and then ultimately being on the battlefield and bringing that to you right here on the Rise of Kingdoms official channel. You're going to be getting that first and foremost right here.
Yes, indeed. Thanks again for having us to cast this matchup. Gecko, we can pass it back to you in the studio to wrap things up.
And we indeed took over Chiskel. Thank you very much, my man, and Dragothian, you too. I appreciate both of you for an awesome cast. Congratulations to our two winners. We have Ovie versus JWM in the final next week. Coming up, the wrap final show, the end of Osiris League coming up next week. And the two big boys, the two big alliances going in for the final takedown in this Osiris League have been decided. Next week, we will have a trio cast where myself, Chiskel, and Dragothian will most likely be on together to wrap up this show. We saw an unbelievable amount of plays out of all the alliances in this final set of matches. I'm really looking forward for next week. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. We again apologize for the little bit of lag and issues that happened. Had to get a quick reset, had to fix things up, but we're always ready to go to fix things on the go and get this show back on the road. Appreciate every single one of you stuck by this stream, dropped a like on it, and of course, went to the channels of all the content creators involved, link in the description down below. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, all that good stuff. Let us know you guys enjoy the show. And of course, don't forget to do the same with the official Rise of Kingdoms channel. We'll see you guys next week. Thank you again. And this stream has been brought to you by the sponsored creators of Rise of Kingdoms as well as Lilith Gaming. Take care and have a good one. Peace.